Welcome to this video on the upcoming UFC Fight Night, Lewis versus Teixeira. Obviously, Lewis been in the UFC for a long time now. Has been in the top end of that heavyweight division for as long. Teixeira coming in, 25 years old, one UFC win already, winning very quickly in the first round. But going against a real legend of the heavyweight division and I'd say top 10 still. So getting straight into it. So getting into a few of the stats. Teixeira firstly has 4 inches of reach advantage. Age, which I'll go into in a bit. Lewis is 40 versus Teixeira is 25. And 4 inches of height advantage as well for Teixeira. He's really that new star heavyweight. He's a guy who is large, but has cut himself down to get down to heavyweight rather than sort of being a shorter guy who has become a heavyweight. Teixeira is just so big. He's kept himself in fighting shape, even though being, I think he's 6'6" or something like that, so a big guy, sort of the Tom Aspinall size. Which I think we'll see in future. They're the type of heavyweights who will go forward and be the best from now on. It's the guys who are between 6'4" and 6'6", 6'7" as standard, and will use the jab, will use the boxing, and you're not just looking for a one-punch knockout. I think Teixeira is very good. He has abilities everywhere. And that size will just make it very difficult for anyone. It'll get him up there on a size comparison with Tom Aspinall, which helps. And being that young, he's got time to learn, which is a real problem. You think about Lewis, 4 inches reach advantage, 4 inches height advantage against Lewis. It's going to be tough. Derek Lewis has been on won, I think, his last fight, but against any top guys he's lost, or anyone near the top 10 he's lost. So I think that's a real problem. Lewis is looking for that one punch. His stamina isn't great, which is only going to diminish further. Now he's 40 years old, and I think that's the problem. I think Teixeira is coming in and fighting Lewis at a time where Lewis is probably at his worst compared to his recent fights against top 10. And just the size is just so incredible difference, to be honest. It's such an incredible difference. I don't see it working. Teixeira can get that jab out, can use the size. Lewis is going to have to go for a big punch, and he's going to have to work hard to get on the inside to get them punches away, which just doesn't work with his stamina. It's a tough fight for Lewis. He's going to have to get on the inside, get working well, and try and find something upstairs when Teixeira can move out of the way quite easily with that length advantage, even if he does get on the inside. And I think he's just too fast. Teixeira's too fast at 25 years old. The stamina is going to be the best it's ever going to be. He's in shape. I think everything's going against Lewis here, and it's not, for a legend like that, I think it's tough. He is 40 though. Look, there is going to be a fight at some point where Teixeira may be one of the best in the heavyweight division in the future. And that's he could be. He is looking like a very good prospect. He's got the body for it. He's got the size for it to fight some of these big guys. He's on a sort of par with Tom Aspinall's size, which will always help you. But Lewis at 40, the reach advantage, the height advantage of Teixeira, and just a stamina problem where he's going to have to work hard to get on the inside and to get anything off. It's going to be a tough one for Derek Lewis to pull off. He could do, look, he's got one punch power, and look, anyone gets touched by that really is going down in some way. But I think against the more technical fighters he's fought, the better fighters going towards the top 5, they just beat him, and that has consistently happened in the last couple of years, and that's only ever going to get worse from now on. So look, going down the rest of the card, some other good fights. Stephen Thompson in the against Bonfim in the co-main. Stephen Thompson gets beaten here. I think he gets beaten. I think that's one of the... And to say Stephen Thompson fight, easy to pick against him is tough to say. But I don't think he's there anymore. I don't think he's got it. He's got a reach advantage of it, I think, 2 inches or something, but just not big enough against a Bonfim coming in, trying to win. 42 years of age for Stephen Thompson, and he's got such a jumpy... on the feet, never, his feet are never on the ground. He's just constantly moving, throwing kicks. At 42 years old, that at some point will go away, and he has slowed down. He has got problems. His last fight against Buckley was in May 2024. Look, you're more than a year on, which just shows he's clearly got some issues with, staying fit and carrying on. I think it's just a very tough fight. Also, Bonfim's got the ability to go to the ground, which Stephen Thompson doesn't and won't do, and I think Bonfim has just the overall game better and just he's caught Stephen Thompson at the end of his career, and that's the key point. I think that's very similar on both the main event and the co-main. On that, Kelvin Kattar in next up to fight. He lost in his last fight going against Steve Garcia. Has Kelvin Kattar looked good since he lost against Max Holloway? I don't think so. I think it's a tough fight. It's very tough to say because Kattar, look, he got absolutely battered in the Holloway fight. So it's very tough. I don't think he's looked good at all. I think Garcia gets it done, and I think it's probably by KO TKO. I think just that fight, sometimes fighters can have 100 fights and it takes nothing off their careers or takes very little. That one fight took years of fights off Kattar's career, and I don't know if he's actually fully recovered, ready to go. He lost it against in his last fight. He's 37 years old. What recovery he's got left at getting towards 40? Very tough to say. Steve Garcia's 33, so a few more years. Hasn't really took the massive battering like that like we saw. I don't think Kattar will ever recover. Sadly, great fighter and took so much damage. Had great ability, great chin. Maybe didn't get KO'd, but I can't see him taking much more punishment. Much punishment before he gets put to the ground and the referee stops it. On to the next fight, another good fight. Nate Landwehr versus Charrier. Look, Nate Landwehr, very good fighter. Always looking to push the pace. Morgan Charrier coming in, lost against Wood last time out. But look, Nate Landwehr's good. I think Nate Landwehr is sort of one of them guys who is good enough at the sport, good enough in fights and up for a fight, and will push a pace enough to get rid of bad fighters, people who are not looking anywhere near or ever going to get to a top 10, top 15. And I think if you beat him, that's the point. You've got to beat him to get towards that. And I think that's a good showing if you do beat a Landwehr, where you're probably going to go up further. I think Charrier is going up further. I think that's the key question. Do you think Charrier is going to go further to a top 15, top 10 sort of fight next? I think yes. I think he could go towards a top 10, even at least a top 10 fighter at some point in the future. I know he lost against Wood last time out, but look, he's only 29. He's got time to learn. He's got a slight reach disadvantage of about 2 inches, I think, here. Not going to help him, but I do like Charrier. I do like how he can do stuff on the ground as well here. He does get takedowns, does go for takedowns. I know Nate Landwehr's had submissions, but really, how many takedowns does he actually go for? Charrier doesn't go for much more. But he does go for more, so I think that's important. If something really went wrong, he may try it. The Wood fight wasn't good for him, but look, he's coming back quite soon. He lost in March. He's back in July. That's a good showing. Whereas Nate lost it by KO TKO, which didn't help last time out, and he's literally a year to today coming back. So another year out, that's never good. And especially at that age of 37, getting towards 40. A lot of these fighters are. There's a point where there's a diminishing point where you can't keep taking punishment in fights. It hurts you a lot more. The recovery is a lot more intensive to get back into a fight afterwards. So I think Sharia gets that done. I think probably by decision on that one. So yeah, there's a few more fights on this card, but really, you got Taffer on there, who obviously at the start of the main card, I think he probably gets a win there. Prelims, Chris Curtis, Jake Matthews, a few good fights. And to be honest, overall, I'm not going to go through all these fights, but there is a good list of fights on here where you go, oh yeah, he's interesting. I think that's a good point, that this fight card is actually very interesting. From, have you really got any top 5 guys in there, or anyone in there at the top 5 level? No, you haven't. But are the interesting fights? And actually, yes. I actually find sometimes this fight night will provide a more, and this is the biggest prediction I'm doing. This will provide a more interesting fight night than some of the UFC full-on numbered events that you've seen recently. Purely around the matchmaking is correct. The matchmaking has been done to actually provide good fights and interesting fights. I'm interested before the fights. When I see some of the fights going on where there's such a big difference in ability, and we all know it, it's never oh yeah, that's interesting, I want to watch. I sort of know what's going to happen anyway. So I think a good fight card, I think that's the important thing. And yeah, a lot of interesting fighters. A lot of people who are semi-casual UFC fans will know them and be interested in their fights. So that's always a positive in these type of fight cards, and I think this is the type of style they should go forward with. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. What fight are you most interested in, and give your prediction who's going to win in that fight down in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.